Zirpaso Kalegebo, Mogasamabit. It's a great honor to be here today, and I would like to thank Mr. Speaker and Madam Chairperson, Mr. Public Defender, members of Parliament, government, and my fellow international organization representatives, the UN, donor agencies, embassies, and especially the young human rights leaders. It's a great honor to be here. It's always a pleasure to be here in this building, in the Parliament. The Parliament is a place that inspires big ideas, and that's very much the idea of today. International Human Rights Day, it's celebrating the wise women and men, world leaders who in 1948 came together to agree on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this year, in particular, we begin a year-long process now leading towards the 50th anniversary next year of several cornerstone covenants, the covenants on civil and political rights and the covenant on economic and social rights, which have given rise to our understanding today of what human rights means. And I think both all three of the previous speakers have really underlined that when we say human rights, we're not talking about pieces of paper, we're not talking about theories, but we're speaking about very critical, important issues that face each and every one of us in our everyday lives. I think it's highly symbolic that this event today is hosted jointly for the first time by Parliament and by the Public Defender's Office. And this really highlights the very important partnership that these two human rights institutions play in terms of ensuring a very strong democracy in Georgia. As we know, the Public Defender's Office is on the front lines, one of the principal mechanisms for monitoring and documenting the degree to which human rights are being upheld in this country, and making a report with recommendations to Parliament. Parliament, in turn, and the Human Rights Committee, in turn, are responsible for taking those recommendations forward, for helping to hold government accountable in terms of implementing those recommendations. So I think it's very, very important that we have this partnership here today really expressed in such a visible way for the first time. I think I would like to join my colleagues in underlining that there is much to be grateful for and thankful for in terms of progress here in Georgia in terms of promoting the human rights agenda. A number of very important key policies and legislative measures have been taken in recent years. The National Human Rights Strategy and Action Plan for the very first time places human rights at the core of all Georgians' national strategic decision-making, and this is very, very important. At the same time, a number of laws have been passed that I would say are very progressive and really demonstrate Georgia's path towards European integration. Laws fighting violence against women, laws preventing discrimination against in all forms, the establishment of a juvenile justice code, the ratification of the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disability. All of these taken together mean that Georgia is taking very big steps forward in terms of joining the European way and the international community in promoting human rights. This year as well, October in fact, was a very, very big month for Georgia and human rights. First of all, at the United Nations, the periodic review took a very close and hard look at the situation here and underscored all of these elements of progress that I have just mentioned. So I think Georgia is to be applauded for achieving quite a warm marks in terms of the UPR review. At the same time, for the first time in its history, Georgia in October has joined the United Nations Human Rights Council. And I think this is a recognition globally of the progress that Georgia has made. I think that we can all agree Georgia is a leader in terms of promoting human rights institutions and policies in the region. This is without doubt. Of course, at the same time, an issue as complex and comprehensive as human rights and sensitive at times is something that is a never-ending process. something that we have to continue to work on each and every day, each and every year together. As has already been mentioned by the previous speakers, a number of very critical challenges remain in terms of translating this really fantastic legislative and policy base into action on the ground that changes the lives of citizens, of households, of communities. This is where our work lies now, in terms of ensuring that the rights, especially of vulnerable members of society, are protected. By this I mean minorities of all types protected by the anti-discrimination law. Minorities in terms of religious, sexual, ethnic minorities, women, girls who are faced every day with gender-based violence, people with disability who are faced every day with the very simple task of just entering public buildings or school or trying to find a job. Now, strengthening national human rights institutions, especially, for example, the Public Defender's Office or Parliament, these are critical means and requirements to helping to implement this agenda. And this is very important. But as critical in this regard, and I would like to pay special tribute to the inspirational and strong and vibrant civil society here in Georgia, who continue also to play a day-to-day important role in the front lines, fighting for human rights every single day. And I think civil society is to be very much applauded in that regard. I would like to reiterate that just in September of this year, the world's leaders came together to agree on the new global development agenda for the next 15 years. The Sustainable Development Goals, or global goals as they're known, have placed human rights at the center of all development priorities. We have learned the very hard way that human rights and social and economic development are two sides of the same coin. They cannot be separated. You cannot have one without the other. We cannot say, well, human rights are a luxury that need to wait until we reach a certain level of economic or social development. This we know not to be the case, and no country is accepted. So I think, in closing, I would just like to again reiterate that on this day, International Human Rights Day here in Georgia and here in Parliament, there's much really to acknowledge in terms of progress. This we need to do, but we need to do much more. We need to work together, government, civil society, the international community. We need to work together to be sure that all of those issues that the public defender has just outlined, all of those people whose lives are affected in a negative way each and every day, that no longer happens. And we are here on behalf of, well, I'm here on behalf of the United Nations Development Program to recommit ourselves to this partnership with all of you through support of our partners, the European Union, for example, through our collective work with our sister UN agencies, and working all together, I believe that we can absolutely achieve this very ambitious agenda. And I would like to thank you. Didi Madlaba.